Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMolder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. This week, we're going to tackle topics like long-term hookups, the joys of falling in love quickly, and when what you want feels unimportant. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that we are not licensed therapists in any stretch of the imagination.
No, we're not. We are just two English major or ex-English major. I mean, have you used your major?
Yeah, I mean, I use it every day because I speak English. So,
well, yes, but like that's not what you didn't major in speaking English.
Basically, that's what I did.
No. You majored in like making like a comparison between Beowulf and like, I don't know, Shakespeare's daddy issues or whatever.
Which honestly serves me really well in like most things because like really I just have excellent critical thinking skills.
Also, I know Beowulf was not written by Shakespeare. I just want to say that for like everybody out there. Anyway, Sam and I are not professionals. We are not trained in this. We have no qualifications whatsoever that would give us the audacity to give you our advice. So please take it as you see fit. We are only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs on the incredibly rewarding but fucking mostly confusing experience that is love. All right, Samuel, we have a really adorable check-in question or check-in topic to cover, who brought to us by MG, a letter writer from Massachusetts, who basically wants to know what our thoughts are on obsession. Like, this person writes in and they say that they're stuck in a pattern where they fixate on someone to the point that every interaction with them, however small, can make or break their whole day. And I think it's like, you know, there's like different steps to this. And now I'm freestyling off the letter, but it's like, you know, a crush is one thing, but obsession is when you're like, oh my God, this person is so cool. It's almost like you're idealizing them, right? And it doesn't allow the letter writer, and I'm sure lots of people out there, to have like a good outlook on crushes, you know, or maybe like a clear headedness about it. And how do you like, how do you maneuver having this like obsessive feeling, you know? How I equate it to my own life is like the crushes that I've had in the past that made me feel such an extreme high when I like was with them and I made them happy, and like so undeserving and uncool and like can never, I don't know, live up to how cool they are, right? Because I'm so obsessed with them. Honestly, you know who I used to be obsessed with?
Me.
Yes, but also my other Just Break Up best friend is Spencer. I used to think, oh my God. Spencer is so cool to me. Like, I just think he's such a cool dude.
He is a cool dude.
When I first met him, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he wants to be my friend. And I was like a little intimidated by his coolness. And it took me a while to like relax into my authentic self around him.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, Spencer. I mean, like, I'm not sorry because we're friends now, and I am still obsessed with you, but maybe that's the bad example. How would you summarize the idea or your understanding of obsession versus the letter writers?
I actually really appreciated the letter writers, like the last paragraph that she writes, where she's like, I agonize over every interaction. A positive interaction feels like such a rush, and every less than positive interaction feels like a punch in the gut. I try to distract myself, but with so little getting on, it feels impossible. My obsessive thoughts make me feel gross and unlovable and out of control, which like I can 100% relate to those feelings of like, yeah, when you have a crush on someone or when you really like someone and you are like, your day is defined by when you get to like make contact with them. And then if they like don't respond, or if they don't say your joke was funny, or they like don't get it, then suddenly it's like, oh my God, I have done horribly. As if like our only duty in life is to like make our crushes like us. And if they don't, then like suddenly we're not funny anymore.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to need to like very swiftly take back the thing I said about Spencer because because I never felt that way around him. I just more thought I think my idea of how cool he was made it hard for me to be my authentic self because I was like, oh my God, I want to be his friend. So it is like a distant cousin of what our letter writer is talking about. But I have experienced this, especially with some early on, very big like crushes of my life. You remember who I'm talking about? Yeah. Where I just felt like I couldn't be myself and myself was never good enough if I could be. Like, I think of myself as like a charismatic, funny person, and I'd be around this dude and I would be like, oh, you know, like I saw this, in this movie, you know, and then and he'd be like so cool and chill about it. He'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, Sierra. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm such a loser. I think I had a crush on that person for so long because I just wanted to fulfill it. I wanted to like live up to it. I wanted to prove to myself and to him that I was cool and worthy of love. So I held on to the crush way longer than his actual personality deserved. I mean, not that he was a shitty person, but that like I didn't like him that much as much as I wanted to feel in control of myself, which I definitely think the letter writer would agree with.
Yeah, I think it's like when we talk about in relationships, we just like keep trying to make a relationship work because we've already invested so much time into it. And if we put that much time into it, then it would be worthless and time wasted. I think that's also true of crushes sometimes too, where you have a crush on someone for so long that you like, we just need to make this happen because if not, then I spent the last 2 years being completely obsessed with you for no reason.
Right. And maybe we can like break down the word obsession because it is such a particular crush that makes you feel those such high highs and low lows. And I'm hesitant to use that phrase because I associate those sort of like romantic mood swings with like really abusive or red flaggy relationships. And I don't think it's that. Although this dude from my past definitely did love to like play with my emotions. And I think that was a part of the high and low. Or like the trying to prove to him that I was like good enough for him. And I don't think that's like a common thread with these obsessive crushes. Do you?
I think sometimes. I mean, I'm trying to think of the like crushes that I was most obsessed with, and let me tell you, they definitely got off on my obsession with them.
Maybe that's. I mean, well, would you dare? I mean, nothing Sam and I said ever is like universally true.
No, there is no such thing as like universal truth.
Yeah. And so, but would you go as far to say like you think that it's a common thread that these people that we're obsessed with kind of use our obsession against us? Or like how would they know all the time? I just don't want to say that if I...
No, I think that like my obsession was my own. And I think that some people have used that obsession against me, but I also think that some people have been like super upfront.
Oblivious.
Or like been like, hey, I'm not into you. Or like, hey, let's go on a date and see how it goes. And then I've been able to like see them for an actual person and not just an obsession and been like, oh, you're cool for me. Or like, oh, this isn't really it.
Yeah. And I think that leads me to my first piece of advice for anyone with like an obsession level crush, is that you have to find a way to disempower that crush. And by that, I mean, it's not something that you need to fulfill in order to be lovable. And I don't want to like just say the easy hallmark, like, well, you're enough on your own and you are lovable and all those things, which you are. But we know that that's not necessarily going to comfort you in the moments of feeling really insecure, but more like maybe you can, when we have these obsessive crushes, we can we can acknowledge that we're kind of having these erratic thoughts, right? That we feel like a yo-yo, that like we're getting pulled back and forth by the positive and negatives, and recognize that maybe that's not very healthy for us, and that it's not like anything that we need to change or prove to stop it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like that it's not something that needs to be solved. I think that in my time of great obsession, I was almost addicted to the angst of it, of like, when is this going to happen? When is this Ross and Rachel fucking dance going to end? But if somebody had said to me, like, it doesn't need to end because that's not its purpose, that you're not on like some quest to prove your lovability, but instead you have a right, like you're an agent in your life and you can say, I don't want a relationship that makes me feel this polarized, or I want this relationship, but I want to feel good about myself, and I'm going to make changes in this. I'm going to demand a level of respect or treatment in it. Not that the letter writer or anyone out there like thinks of their obsession crushes as like conquests, but it's like it takes a control of you in a way that makes you feel as though it has to be fulfilled, or else you're stuck with those terrible feelings.
Yeah, because the terrible feeling is like constant highs and lows.
Right.
And like, yeah, and I think that we get this idea that the thing that's going to solve it is by this fruition
is
where
them.
this person, right? But like that's not true, and we know that and we know that in relationships too, right? That like the highs and lows don't get solved, or like the thing that's causing us pain is not going to be solved by the thing that's causing us pain, right? It comes from like our own understanding of ourselves and taking a step back and asking ourselves the right questions and comforting the child inside of us that is looking for that validation, understandably, right? No tea, no shade, no judgment there, because that's like just the reality of how we move through the world.
Right.
I think that like what happened for me was like, as I got older, I just realized that like no one is as cool as I think they are. And also that I am much cooler than I think that I am.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking like we could wrap this up really well by telling ourselves what we should have been told or told ourselves back then. And that's a huge one for me. And I don't mean this in a disparaging way. Like I've been thinking a lot about how you and I try to walk the dance between the dance of like shitting on our exes and acknowledging that they're people, or like shitting on all the listeners' exes, but acknowledging that they're people and on a journey and worthy and whatever. And so I don't want to like shit on this guy in that way, but he was in no way he was on such a pedestal that like I would have shined his shit if he asked me to. You know what I mean? Like I thought he was so fucking cool.
Bro, so I still have it in my head. It's not going anywhere. You would shine his shit. I'm picturing you with like a little rag and like his little piece of poop, and you're just shining it. But here's the thing, it doesn't get any shinier because it's poop, so.
Yeah, because everybody shits their pants. Oh my God, do you want to hear some weird, crazy shit trivia?
Okay. Yeah.
So like a man, I read this on like a history, like Instagram that I follow because I'm a history nerd. There's this crazy explorer man, no idea the time or his name because I don't remember any important details.
Cool, and you read this on the internet?
Yeah. And he was trapped in a cave. I think it was like in like 1910 or something because he went on to work in movies. So like 1920, I don't know. And he got trapped in a cave, like because of an avalanche. And so he was like stuck in like a snow cave. And he ended up chiseling his way out with a frozen piece of his own feces that he like carved into a chisel. So kids at home, if you're ever stuck in a very cold situation, freeze your own shit and use it as a weapon.
This is the advice that people are here for. They're like relationships.
Literally,
unimportant.
I thought it was so interesting and so hilarious that I needed to tell you. I just needed to. So anyway, so yes. Okay. So he was not, I think back then though, here's why I brought up like how hard the dance that we have to do, like shitting on our exes. Get it? But also like acknowledging that they're like whole wonderful people too, is that I don't know how I would have become like disillusioned with him at the time. Like, I don't know what would have helped me other than time and experience in that moment, other than maybe like a podcast like ours or like a friend like you being like, he doesn't treat you well and that isn't a worthy love, you know, like other than someone saying it really directly to me that like a high and a low does not equal a sustainable relationship. And why do you want to be with someone that doesn't make you feel good? What do you have to prove to yourself or to them, you know, because they're never going to hear you. It is an you can't finish that equation. You know, they're not going to reciprocate it. Even if they were like, oh yeah, you're cool, let's be together. Then what? You're just going to like move around for the rest of your life being like, oh God, thank God I'm cool enough to be loved. And what if, oh my God, what if I slip up and I'm not as cool anymore? And you'll be walking on these eggshells, you know?
Or you will end up dating them and look back and be like, wow, I put a lot more effort into this obsession than is deserved. Because like this person, and I think the issue with obsession is like, when I said like no one is as cool as I think they are, I don't mean that as like a mean thing. I mean that as a thing of like good, because like then I can see them as full humans and not just this like idea that I've created for them in my head, right? And that makes me feel better. I'm sure it makes them feel better because like I don't know if this has happened to you, but like when people think you're like super cool, it's like not actually that fun. Or like when people are like obsessed with you, or people are like, oh my God,
sorry, Spencer.
You're awesome. Like, oh my God, I can't. It's just like, yeah, but then I feel like I can't be with you as myself because you've like created this persona for me that doesn't fit with who I am, and I'm uncomfortable with that.
Totally. Going to the idea of like, it's not a bad thing that people aren't as cool as you think they are. Like, that's not shitting on them or you. Going back to that idea, like, I was like driving down the road the other day and I saw this very beautiful woman, like just a like universally attractive. And I was like, oh my God. And and she was younger. She was like maybe, I don't know, late teens, early 20s. And I immediately was like triggered for the first time to go back to like a mental way of self-harming that I used to do in high school, which was that I would see beautiful girls like of my own age and immediately not hate them, but hate myself, right? Feel really insecure that here was a traditionally beautiful person and I felt whatever way about myself, and like how they were a threat to me, but not a threat as in like I hated them, but that I don't know, that they had something that I wanted. And I hadn't felt that way in like a decade. You know, I hadn't felt like this superiority, inferiorness or whatever. And why I thought of it in this conversation is how much you, over time through life, you shed the understanding of what does it mean to be cool or graceful or beautiful or like or literally like blessed, you know, like what does that mean when you're in your 30s and you know that everybody fucking shits their pants and everybody fails at relationships and no one, you know, looks good in the morning after they've had 50 drinks and, you know, well, that person is dead. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
50 orange sodas.
Yeah. Was a wild night. I was stuck in a cave. I
had to chisel my way out with my poop.
I had to wait for it to freeze first, but then
I don't understand. Was he also freezing? Like, did he have protective equipment on? Okay.
I mean, he was like snow traveling.
Snow traveling. Was he?
He was like hiking in snow, right? So he had to like preserve his body heat, but he got the idea from, oh my God, I was like on a different tangent. Hold on. Let me go back to the actual helpful thing I was saying was I feel so fucking lucky to be free of the expectation of being perfect or cool all the time, because I now can walk around the world with the great understanding that all of us just aren't as cool as we think we are, and that the expectation to be perfect, to be beautiful, to be cool is an expectation that will weigh you into your grave if you let it. Bringing it to obsessions, like that person is a human and that relationship has the power that we give it, you know?
That's very true.
Right? I think about like that really, like, you know, my obsessive crush, like I gave not even him, because again, not to make him a villain, but I gave that relationship all the power that it needed to fester in my heart for years as this unfulfilled thing that I just wasn't good enough to fulfill.
Yeah.
Instead of him and I not being compatible, not being meant for each other, not being able to sustain anything, not being mature or old enough or whatever to like actually want to be together, you know? Yeah. What would you tell your little obsessed self?
Oh, I would just tell myself, I would tell him that
I'm really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That person is not as cool as you think that they are. And you are much cooler than you think that you are.
Yeah.
Because then it was learning that has been such a freeing thing, because you like can then walk into the world, into different rooms and be like, yep, I deserve to be here. You all are making it up as you go along as well. Cool. Nice to meet you.
Totally.
Let's figure this out together, rather than being like, oh my God, I don't deserve to be here. Or, oh my God, this person is so much cooler than me and they'll never give me the time of day. If they don't give you the time of day, then like, why do you want to be with them?
Fuck them.
Right?
Yeah. Fuck them.
No.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, that was a good conversation about obsession and frozen shit. Let's get into our letters.
All right, let's do it. So this first letter comes from Stella Meyer, who is writing from NYC, baby.
Bebe.
I'm going to keep this background story short because it is a long one, but here we go. You might want to buckle up. This one's a journey. This letter is like one of the shortest letters that we've picked in months. I just love that she's like, hey, this is real long. You all do that all the time. And then we get to ones that are like 4 pages single pace. And I'm like, no, that's a long letter. All right. When I was a senior in high school, I met a boy, let's call him Noah, in art class. We started dating. I took his virginity. We made out in the kiln room and ceramics class, etc., etc. I broke up with him a few weeks in after he told me he loved me, and I freaked the fuck out. I immediately regretted it and talked to him the next day. Fast forward 6 years this month. Happy anniversary, ? And we have been consistently hooking up ever since. We went to the same university, so we hooked up during that time when we weren't seeing other people. We continued to hook up with others, but only stopped talking for periods when we were actually committed to someone else. We always came back together. I moved to France post-grad, and we Snapchatted every single day the entire year I was there. I came back home, and he was suddenly in a relationship, which hurt me more than I expected. Then they broke up, and we hooked up again. Then I moved to New York, and when I come home for breaks, we still hook up. I deeply care about him, and I think he cares about me too, but is it too late to do something? I don't want to mess up a convenient hometown hookup I have if we talk about it and he decides he doesn't want anything more, but also he might move to NYC, in which case we should talk about it, right? At age 24, 6 years after starting to see each other, I feel this internal push and external, at my opinionated friends, to solidify WTF this, quote, relationship is. Thoughts?
Yes, I have thoughts.
Oh, do
Stella.
you?
I do, but they're not as like pronounced as I want them to be. Sam's like TLDR at the top of this letter when he sent me to review the letters was, we've been hooking up for 6 years. Do we need to DTR, like determine the relationship? And I thought the letter was going to be like way more salacious, and dramatic than it is. So I wish I could be like, oh my God, yeah, you need to DTR, you need to figure the fuck out, like this guy is walking all over your boundaries or what, like I want it to be like so much more dramatic.
Yeah.
But in reality, Stella, like you're right. This sounds like a very fine mutually beneficial friendship in which you guys have sex. And I think Sam and I wanted to answer this letter and take the opportunity to remind everyone that not all relationships, and I'll air quote during that, relationships have to result in a capital R relationship. That we're very much trained by society and our culture that a monogamous long-term relationship is the only way to be successful. And if you don't have a romantic relationship in your life, you are unsuccessful and unfulfilled and unlovable. But there are so many different ways to be a human in relationship with another human. And other than being like, I care about him and I was jealous of his girlfriend, you didn't take any time, Stella, to explain why you want to be with him, which makes me question your desire, as you maybe are, right? That like, maybe you like it exactly as it is. And then if that's the case, Sam and I want to say like, cool, Godspeed, do whatever. Like, it sounds like you are two consenting adults that are consenting to have this friends with benefits ongoing relationship. Just because you've been doing it for 6 years doesn't change anything to me.
For sure. And it sounds like there's not a lot of boundary crossing that's happening, right? It's that you hook up when you're not in long-term relationships with other people. And then it ends when you are in relationships with other people. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think that that's a perfectly wonderful, healthy, possibly, relationship to have with someone of like, yeah, we are friends who are really good at having sex with each other. And so when we don't have other people to have sex with, or we are not in relationships, then we like choose to be each other's hookup.
Right.
And I think that is totally fine. It also is reminding me of that episode of Sex and the City when Carrie tries to date her friends with benefits, like the one that she always goes back to when she breaks up with someone. And it goes really horribly because they have absolutely nothing in common except for the fact that they like to have sex with each other. So that could also happen too, just as an FYI.
And Sam and I are not omniscient. Like, we don't know what's going on in your relationship and your brain. Like, maybe you have a dozen reasons why you're like, wow, I think maybe I'm developing feelings for this person.
Yep.
But I'm going to go with my instincts and be like, you would have explained that to us if it was more than just that internal push of like, should we be dating by now? And why I'm pushing back on that is because I think that internal push is an external push from like society being like, it's not healthy to have a 6-year friends with benefits relationship. I totally disagree. And I would also add, like, you haven't been with this dude for 6 years. Like, you have been out, like, exploring your life, exploring different partnerships, exploring the world and yourself. And he's just like a friend that you have been returning to and having a physical relationship with. And that in itself is okay.
For sure.
Now,
and take out the physical part of it, take out the sex, and people wouldn't be like, oh my God, I can't believe that you had this 6-year relationship with this friend. Like,
from high school.
Right? No, that's a normal thing to have.
Well,
and
no,
just
no.
like
Me, I'd be like, oh my God, you're still friends with your, like, I'm still friends with people from high school, but only very few. And that's no shitting on my high school friends. Like, it just time and space changes things.
For sure. I also have friends from high school, but it's also like I have fewer and fewer friends from high school every single year.
It's hard. Life happens. Yeah. So I would say, like, okay, so if you, after hearing this response and you're like, I still feel like this urge to see what would go on, you just have to decide, well, one, you have to really sit with those feelings and be like, do I want to be with this person, or do I feel the need to determine the relationship because of all of these pressures, right? Or am I like, no, I want to be with this person? Because if you don't want to be with this person, now is the time in your life to be single, right? Like, well, there's no right or wrong time to be single, but you're 24, you're in New York, like, have fun. you know? But so if you decide you're like, no, this feels good, I want to explore it, I would say you have to go into that. One, honestly, you'd have to tell him because right now you two are in a consenting friends with benefits thing.
Yep.
Situationship, whatever. And if you went into, if you change your mind and you're like, I have feelings for him and I'm going to move forward as though we could maybe be together without telling him, that's moving him into a type of relationship that he's not consenting to. Right. I really loved, you said that a month ago, Sam, in an episode about cheating, like that if you move, you wouldn't be cheating on this person, Stella, by not telling them. But like if you change the dynamic of the relationship without telling the non-informed partner, then then they're entering something that they haven't actually consented to. And all of that is to say, Stella, I would say have an open and honest conversation with him, but no, regardless of the outcome of that conversation, your relationship will change. You will either keep going the way things are going, but now you're going to maybe see if you can date or it's going to stop.
For sure.
Probably.
Yeah. And I think either
the change is good.
Right. Either of those outcomes is not a bad outcome. Right. And I think, that this idea of like, well, I don't want to lose this hometown hookup that I have. Losing your hometown hookup is not going to be the end of the world. So if this is something where you are like ready and really want to move forward with a relationship,
right,
then like I would say put yourself out there. I don't think that 6 years of this is like too long of a time, right? I mean, we've all been in weirder situations where like suddenly you're dating a person that you broke up with 13 years ago. So like obviously this is
I did not see that dig coming. I was like, walking down the wonderful sunlit path of recording my podcast with my best friend, and then you fucking tripped me. Like that's what that felt like.
So what I'm saying is like, I think, so here's the like TLDR of our advice to you. One, there's no rules. Like you don't have to conform to anyone's idea of what a relationship.
Nobody's cool and there are no rules.
Nobody should be like, like people will say that this either has to be a relationship or it doesn't, but like that's not true. It can be exactly what you want it to be, which seems like this is what it is. But so like ridding yourself of those expectations from society, look internally and say like, is this a person that I really want to be with? Is this someone that I'm willing to put time and effort into in order to embark on a relationship with them? Is it that important to me that they are monogamous with me, that we are moving forward and we're changing the dynamic of our current relationship?
Right.
And if it is, go for it. Like there's no rules about how long you have to wait. There's no rules about friends with benefits turning into real relationships. Happens all the time, right?
Totally.
And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and you will move forward and you will have had a great long-term hookup. You will have shooting your shot. You will have shot your shot.
Sam hunting, ladies and gentlemen, and those who do not subscribe to the
That's right. Or like basketball. I don't know. Peter is making me watch that ESPN thing about the 97 Bulls. Which I expressed interest in at one point, and then he turned it on and I was like, oh, this is just all about basketball. Okay, I don't know that I'm actually interested. But it's 10 episodes long and it's an hour, and I don't have the heart to tell him that I don't want to watch it anymore.
Oh my God. Nobody tell him. He doesn't listen to the podcast.
Anyway, so like you will have shot your shot and it'll go well or it won't go well, but like life will go on, and this person will have been a great person in your life and maybe will continue to be a great person in your life. But like it's better to take the risk than to live in fear of regret, right? So if you want to be with this person, go for it. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't know, that you have waited too long or that it's not going to work. And don't let anyone else tell you that you need to define the relationship if you don't want to. Like if this is working for you and it's working for him, go for it. Who cares?
Yeah. The theme of this episode is romantic anarchy.
Yes.
Nothing matters. There's no rules. No one's cool, and freeze your shit.
Perfect. All right. Do we even need to read the next two letters? I don't think so.
No, literally that answers all questions imaginable. Oh my God. All right. Stella, we love you. Thank you so much for writing.
We love you.
Hope this helps. Whether you're dealing with the biggest, worst heartbreak ever, or I don't know, like a global pandemic, we could all use a little extra support to help become the person that we want to be. That's why Sam and I are happy that this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp.
BetterHelp is an online counseling tool that will help assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can connect in a safe and private environment. And remember, it's not self-help, it's professional counseling.
It's a little bit more serious than those nightly bubble baths that you've been taking. You can send a message to your counselor at any time and you'll get timely, thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions as you see fit.
BetterHelp offers licensed professional counselors who are specialized in depression, stress, anxiety, anger, LGBTQ matters, grief, self-esteem, so anything that you might be dealing with.
That's like every letter writer in our show ever.
It's true, it is.
And you and me, like that's us.
All those things wrapped into one.
Sam and I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/justbreakup.
Join over 800,000 people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/justbreakup.
All right. The next episode is from Clara Anan, who is writing from Queens, New York. Dear Sam and Sierra, first of all, love you both and want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for speaking healing words to my soul on a weekly basis. Y'all are the best. I'm a gay lady who is falling for a beautiful angel. We'll call her Jess. We matched on Bumble, and immediately I knew that she was someone I wanted to pursue. We shared so many common interests. Before I say more, I know that a stable relationship can't be built off of our mutual love for Harry Potter and astrology, but it makes the first couple of conversations a lot easier. And I've been at this dating game for a really long time after going from toxic beast to toxic beast. One thing led to another, and we set up a FaceTime date per the quarantine. We've been talking every day since. She makes me so happy every time I get to see her sweet face on FaceTime. Our conversations have been electric. We keep on finding things we have in common, and it zaps me in the tummy and makes me smile the big smiles. I met her mom and brothers on FaceTime. She has the cutest cats ever and plays the ukulele. She's also a bit older than me, something I like. She's financially stable and has a big girl job. On the surface, it's so perfect for me, it's gross. I haven't seen her in person yet because of the quarantine. I will next Saturday for the first time just to make sure she doesn't smell like poop or anything. Oh my God, poop is such a common theme.
If she does smell like poop, you can freeze her and use her as a tool to chisel yourself out of a nice cave.
Well, that was, okay, that's dark, Dexter. Okay. Honestly, even if she had 8 nipples, I think I could still make it work. I made a comment to a friend about how I'm waiting to see her in real life before I think about the L word, love, not lesbian, hee hee. My friend kind of made a face and said, damn, you are really U-hauling it, pal. You think that the L word is even appropriate to bring up in a conversation with her right now? And I immediately denied it out of insecurity, but it got me thinking. What is love? Haha, JK, too deep. I guess the better question is, why do people turn their noses up at the idea of saying I love you too quickly when none of us have ever really figured it out to begin with? Also, a part of me feels like the whole U-hauling stereotype, while particularly hilarious in its truth, creates a narrative that queer women should be shamed for falling in love too fast. I mean, like, that hasn't happened to the straights. Watch a Nicholas Sparks movie. Like, bruh, it's not my fault that she's literally perfect. I keep on being told to pump the brakes by my friends because love shouldn't happen that fast. But who says that? Who is to say what love is and isn't? Does that not belong to us? Am I crazy? Like, a part of me cares and the other doesn't give a shit. She gives me butterflies and has the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. Would love to hear your thoughts, Clara. All right, Clara, thank you so much for writing and for staying safe during quarantine. Yeah. Okay. So just to clarify for anyone out there who doesn't know, the thing that Clara referenced, the U-Haul stereotype. Sam, do you want to take that one away?
Yeah. So there's this joke out there that goes, "What does a lesbian bring to the second date?"
No. It's like the first date.
No.
Is it the
Keep
second
going.
date? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What does a lesbian bring to the second date?
A U-Haul.
Yes. What does a gay man bring to the second date?
What?
What second date? Ba-doom.
Okay, so the U-Haul joke is that's funny. The U-Haul joke is the idea that like queer women, as Clara said so kindly, move really fast in relationships or fall in love really fast. And I'm really glad that we get to unpack this because I have always like, I don't know, similarly to the letter writer, like enjoyed the joke, but also felt like not a sensitivity to it. But maybe
I'm sorry, I can hear Opal's mouth.
She's like, so codependent.
Making licking noises. So if anyone else hears it, that's what it is. Hi, Opal.
She's
there
literally trying to get closer and closer to the microphone. Working at home, people. She just needs so much. She's been sleeping next to me this whole time, and then out of the blue, she crawls onto my lap, just like she needs to know that like I'm not going to leave the room. But we have 2 more letters to get into. Okay. Anyway, so what I was saying was like I feel like I love laughing at the joke, and I also love making the joke, but part of me feels like a sensitivity to it because I think it triggers shame, because it makes you second guess yourself or feel ashamed about something that you might feel good. I do love the joke though because it has been wildly true in my life, and I have moved too fast in the past in queer relationships. So,
for sure.
It definitely, a lot of jokes come from truth. So,
but I definitely agree that like this theme that I didn't know we were going to have is also playing
poop,
not frozen poop, but like this idea of like there are no rules has been throughout all of these letters, right? And I think you're absolutely right, Clara, that it's not up to me to decide what love is for you, right? It's not up for your friend to decide when you should use the L word and when you shouldn't, right? You get to make that decision. You get to come up with your own definition. You get to share that definition with the person that you really like or that you love, right? And so you're absolutely right that this idea of like, oh, you shouldn't say this word until this date, and like all of those rules that we think that we have all mastered are just made up, right? And you are the person who gets to decide what your relationship looks like with consent from your partner, and you get to have your own definitions of what those words mean, right? You get to define what monogamy means, you get to define what cheating is, you get to define what love means, right? So you're absolutely right that your friend shouldn't be able to shame you into not expressing something that is true to you, right? So,
but we all know they can.
We all know they do.
Yeah. And I say that because our friends make those comments for a myriad of reasons. One, they might feel judgmental or jealous or like a more like ugly feeling, They might feel concerned for you, right? And want you to be making healthy choices for your heart so that your heart is as safe and healthy as possible. Yeah. Or because they, I don't know, don't want you to be hurt, in any way. Or they might even feel like insecure. Like I know sometimes like friends that I was close to, like moving fast with their partners, like I didn't want to lose them. It's like, are you sure you're making it? And that also comes from a place of insecurity. But I do think what I want to talk on, I'll get to maybe like the no rules sort of thing in a minute, but I do want to acknowledge that moving fast, no matter the gender of you and your significant other, is a thing, right? Like that happens, and there is a reason why people warn against moving fast. There is like Sam said, there are no rules. There's no right or wrong thing. You know, like I've moved in really fast with a partner in the past. I've said I love you very fast with a partner in the past. And none of these things have been like detrimental to my life or my livelihood or anything.
Sure.
But the reason why people tell us to not move so fast is so that we don't get our heart tangled up in something that we can't untangle safely, right? And I do want to say lovingly to you as a stranger, you have not kissed this person yet, and you have not smelled them, like you said. You have not seen them, like Sam always likes to say, first thing in the morning with filthy breath. Not that would stop anyone from like loving them, but that
just makes it harder.
Right. I'll say this to Clara, like you are in a long distance relationship right now with this person who you hypothetically haven't met yet. You're in a long distance relationship, and in long distance relationships, the first rule is that it's going to seem, even though the distance makes it difficult, it's going to make it seem easier to get along with that person because you're not going to see their everyday flaws. It's like every day that you get to FaceTime them is like, oh my God, so exciting, so lovely. Let's not talk about anything difficult or, you know, let's keep it all nice and exciting and romantic because we don't get the everyday life together. Which is very similar to the honeymoon period, which is what you're experiencing. You're experiencing like a Molotov cocktail of quarantine, part unintentional long distance relationship and part honeymoon phase, like the beginnings of a relationship. So yes, this person that you've met on Bumble might seem perfect to you, but I assure you that she's not. Does that mean that she is not lovable? No. But I would say that it is okay to have great affection and infatuation for someone in your life, and that those feelings can mature into love, right? I'm not here to tell you what your love is and isn't, but I just want to pose these ideas to you as like perhaps like brain expanders or a different way of looking at it, like that you may feel feelings of love for her. And if you guys stay together, there'll be months down the line where you're like, oh, dang, now I love her because you see her in a moment of stress where she's freaking out about work or something and she does something kind to you, or you see her playing with her sibling, or you know what I mean? Like I think that you said this once, Sam, when we were talking about the difference between like and love or infatuation and love or something like that. I can't remember what it was. And you said that, what did you say? Something about like love being an action or you know, that like you're
love's
at
not
a place,
a feeling, it's an action.
Right. And love in itself has many children emotions, right? Or sibling emotions. Infatuation, like, adoration, attraction, lust, you know, all of those feelings that we can feel really freely. So that's, I just want to like, you're right, Clara. I like the questions that you pose. Like, who decides what love is and when can it happen? Like and nobody cares, right? Like at the end of the day, no one is going to change what your heart feels, right? But I want to maybe like just pose some of those questions to you so that you feel less of a pressure to name this greatness right now, right? It can just be good, right? It can just be great and perfect and exciting. I'm afraid if you're like, oh my God, it was love at first sight, it was perfect, and you do the stereotypical like queer U-Haul thing, which I do want to unpack next, then it's going to be really hard when the real relationship doesn't live up to that. Like the in-person working, you know, hard to make things work. Like, you know, when shit hits the fan, haha, poop pun number 2, you know, like, you know, I think that's why people warn against moving too fast, is that we make these decisions in the height of romantic ecstasy and then we don't have that feeling of like floating of greatness for the rest of the relationship. And it's kind of hard to navigate after that. Again, though, I want to say that like there are no rules, there are no universal truths. I could totally be wrong. Like your relationship could be perfect for the rest of your life. I mean, that's not going to happen, but
it's not going to happen.
You know,
it's just not going to happen. Like, let's just call that out. But, yeah, I mean, I think
you normally like call that out more than I do. Do you feel similarly to me?
Yes, I do. I was just letting you do your thing. I was like, oh, she's just going to keep going. Okay. No, I agree with you. And I think that like, I mean, Clara, you call this person perfect twice in your letter, right? And I can tell you that this person is not perfect because no person is perfect.
Right.
And for me, I learned in my own definition of love that if I loved the person because I thought they were perfect, then I wasn't loving the whole person. Like that wasn't actually love, right? That was just me being really into the fact that they're really into Harry Potter and astrology, right? And so I think that's what gives me pause about this is just like, love is a big word for someone that you see as perfect, right? Because I think it's really actually difficult to honestly and authentically love a perfect person. Because love for me is the ways in which the other person challenges me, the ways in which I am called to show up in ways that are uncomfortable, that I have to sometimes put the needs of someone else before my own. Like that for me is what love feels like. And it's hard to do that when the person across, like looking at you on the screen is in your mind perfect. You will never be called upon to put their needs before you. You will never be called upon to be in an uncomfortable situation, to correct them, to have conflict with them because they're just perfect, right? And so it's for me that it gets hard to say that something like that is love because I think that it doesn't allow for that person that you are looking at to be their full selves and to be in conflict with you and still at the end of the day come back to that feeling of love, which I think is like that for me is what love is. When love is most powerful is when Peter and I have conflict and we still know that like after that conflict we are going to be together, right?
Totally.
Like we can have that fight, or I can say that snotty thing, or we can like really get into some really meaty discussion. And at the end of the day, be like, and we know that once we get through this, we will still be together because our love is stronger than these individual conflicts that come up.
Yeah.
And that for me makes love feel much more than just infatuation or just being super into a perfect person. Because I have been into many perfect people, and like, let me tell you, that did not stand very well once like we really got into the thick of it. So that's what I would say. That was a consideration that I would invite you to also take on when you think about what love means for you. Because if you can get to that definition of love or something similar, I think that it makes it easier to walk away from things that seem perfect that really aren't. If that makes sense.
I totally agree. And I was sitting here thinking like, what do I feel when I feel like, because the U-Haul stereotype would make me feel shame, right? I'd be like, I'd be ashamed and embarrassed that I like was so into somebody, right? And Clara, when I imagine the conversation between you and your friend, I'm going to challenge you to view it a little differently. Like my defenses go up when I think of that. So I totally understand why you answered insecurity or felt defensive of like, well, what do they know about my relationship? Like they don't know, they're not in my heart. They're not in my head. The reality is when someone in that circumstance, like after a month of FaceTiming someone or whatever, what they're saying to you is that is something that is unfortunately an undeniable truth. Asterisks, there are no universal truths. Like I'm gonna say my statement fully knowing that like I will never understand the nuances of anyone else's experience. But what I was gonna say, what they're saying to you is none of us, not just you, not just queer women, none of us are capable of fully loving someone that we have only known for a couple weeks through FaceTime, right? I want to challenge us to no longer fear words like crushes or infatuation or adoration or there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being like, oh my God, I've been seeing this person for a month and I'm just obsessed with them. I think that they're so cute and adorable and nice and kind. And I'm so excited to be with, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be the capital R real thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This doesn't have to be forever love. This doesn't have to be soulmates. This doesn't have to be love at first sight. It can just be really good and growing into something really great. And what our friends are saying to us, both you and I, Clara, because Sam called me out for U-hauling with Willow when I first met her, for sure. Because I was like, I'm going to marry her. And guess what, Sam?
It's happening.
But, so when we feel defensive, it's because our loved ones are hopefully coming from a place of love and respect to say, you are saying these things about this person that don't reflect my understanding of love, right? And so when you feel this pushback about your friend is saying you just don't know if you love this person. You might feel these feelings of love, but Sam and I are working under this assumption that love is this action, this built thing. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like, I simultaneously want to push back on the idea that love is something that we immediately feel. Like you said, love is not a feeling, right? And also uplift the crush, uplift the honeymoon phase, that time in your relationship in which you're getting to know each other and that everything does feel perfect. Like, that time can be so joyful and lovely and exploratory, but it doesn't have to be the big thing yet. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like that reveals itself a little bit later.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that.
Or
and at the end,
one more thing. Disempowering love too. Be like, sure, if you love them, great. Then that's your definition of love. But just don't expect her to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like Sam was
I think
saying.
That's the big thing is like, you can love her
Yeah.
all that you want, but also recognize that you are loving a thing that you don't fully know. And like, none of us can actually fully know our partners ever. But it is much more difficult in the early stages of a relationship when all you see is the perfect person that they tend to show, right? Like Sierra says, they shit their pants, they smell bad, like all of those things that complicate love, right? Like they don't make it more difficult to love. They don't make it, or that doesn't make people unlovable. It just complicates love. And so my question for you, I guess, Clara, is like, when you discover these things about her, like, what word are you going to use to describe it then? Right? Like, if love is loving a perfect person, then what is smelling their bad breath in the morning? What is your first really big fight? What is they have a damn pig that their mother gave them and that they like put all over the backyard and like move around and sometimes put in the front yard where the neighbors can see it. Yeah, he has like a metal pig with like wings on it that his mother gave him.
Oh, no, everybody's thinking about the a live pig right now. Nobody knew you were talking about that statue until you described that right now.
Oh yeah, okay. It's not a real pig, thank God. Like, what are the words? Then what word are you going to use to describe that? Because for me, they're different things, right? And I think that using the word love is important to be able to understand sort of what it feels like to be with someone who you have conflict and who is imperfect and still wanting to be with them, and loving the perfect persona that people put in front of you, who loves Harry Potter and astrology and is like really cute when they get on FaceTime because they did their makeup, or the lighting looks really good, or they look really cute when they're asleep, when they're not snoring, right?
Right. Yeah, I feel conflicted, like, or I feel like our advice was just very meandering, but I really love the points that we made. That, like, we can't fully know people, even the people that we interact, like, separate of the U-Haul conversation, separate of the I love you conversation, like, you just don't know this person. You have an idea of who they are, and the idea is really nice. And that's great. Like, Clara, we're happy for you. We want you to pursue this relationship, and we want to see where it's going to go. to the love conversation. Love is whatever you define it to be, right? That it can be as big or as little of a thing. Don't let anybody else define it, but know that when the people are questioning you, they probably are trying to tell you something. Lean into the discomfort, or like maybe question your own defensiveness. Like, why does their opinion legitimize or delegitimize your feelings?
Right.
Number one. But number two, like, what's behind their words? What is behind their words is, Sam didn't want me to get hurt, right? Sam didn't want me to make a decision based off of a love that hadn't proved itself to me and him yet, right? Like, so Clara's relationship, that relationship hasn't been proven to the friend, so they want you to be safe, you know? And then to we got to talk about the U-Haul thing for a second, just that stereotype, because I do think it can be detrimental, because it's like it makes people second guess their own instincts, you know, like there are no rules sort of thing along that lines. But I think one of the reasons why it comes out is because a lot of times, especially in younger relationships, when queer people get together for the first time, it feels like finally being seen, right? It feels like finally being to be your authentic self. So that, especially some queer relationships, especially early on, they can feel like so intense, maybe more intense than others. I mean, who knows? Like, the scale of things, of people's hearts, you know, you can't really compare them.
No.
That they move really fast, period. Like, I think there's truth in it. I guess I don't know what else to say. What do you think about the U-Haul stereotype?
I think that it's like a stereotype, right? So I don't think that it is true. And I don't think that all queer women move in immediately together. But I would challenge us to not view it as a negative thing, right? I think that, like, part of it is like, oh my God, I'm so offended that somebody thinks that I'm going to move in with someone just because I'm a queer woman, and instead really focus on, like, that's a cool thing to do if you want to do it, right? Like, you are an actor with choices, and like other people's perceptions of you don't actually matter that much. So if you want to move in with this person immediately, right, you can always extricate yourself from situations, right? Like, no relationship will ever be something that you are always in. It makes it more complicated if you move in together really quickly, but if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. So, like, I don't like the stereotype of it. And I want to reframe it and say, like, let's not make U-Haul jokes because in a place of derision, right? Like, let's view it as like a positive. Like, it's great that so many queer women find other queer women and are like, I really want to be with you so much that, like, we want to, like, move in together immediately. That's not inherently a bad thing. So, like, own it, enjoy it. Like,
it's so funny. I don't think I would ever anticipate that from you. What were you gonna say?
No, I just have so many queer women friends who are like, who move very quickly in their relationships and like love it and own it, right? And are like, yep, we're moving in together. Like, who knows what's gonna happen in 6 months? We might break up, but like, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with it, right? And I think that there's,
you know what I think.
I think people can use it as like a weapon, but I do think that there's power in being like, yeah, we're going to move in together because, like, life is too short to not do this shit, right?
You're so, that's where the beauty is that life is too short to second guess things or to, you know, whatever. But I was going to say that, again, the power of the stereotype is to make people feel ashamed for what they're like, the progression of things, you know, like the progression of their joy or whatever. But at the end of the day, that stereotype is true for anybody, in that Sam and I just want people to be making choices that are healthy and sustainable and joy driven for their hearts, right? And the problem is with anybody, any gender, any sexuality who move really fast, they often haven't developed the tools to be able to have hard conversations, to get through conversations about money or conflict or the real nitty gritty shit that comes with love. And so it's not about the U-Haul stereotype, Clara. It's that Sam and I want you to have a healthy, sustainable, happy relationship, period.
Absolutely. And if that means moving in together after the second date, cool. If it works for you, it works for you. And there's there's literally nothing wrong with that. And I know plenty of straight people who moved in together after like 2 months or whatever. So like, it's not just inherent with queer women, right? I also know a lot of gay men who, despite the joke that there's no second date, like become boyfriends after like 2 dates. And you're like, okay, cool.
You guys should see his eyes right now. He's
right.
Making some judgy eyes.
I know that wonderful hookup after the gay bar was like mind blowing. Doesn't mean you're boyfriends though.
Just kidding. There are no rules.
Just kidding. Oh, it's a joke.
Well, this conversation is like really meandering, but it's a perfect example of that. Like everybody's version of reality is different, and that we can try to make our timelines and our hearts and relationships match other people, but they're just fucking never the same. And Sam and I's advice, right? Like we try to give universally applicable advice, but our experience and our answers are never as nuanced as the actual situation going on. So, Clara, get through this quarantine safe and healthy, and then put your mouth on this other woman's mouth consensually and have fun and enjoy it.
Absolutely. Don't let the haters get you down.
We love you. Thanks for writing.
Thank you so much. All right. Our last letter comes from I Need Coffee, who is writing from a deep pit. Hello, Sam and Sierra. I started listening to your podcast about 6 months ago, and boy, did I need it. I think what I'm learning as I listen to more and more episodes is that you both really don't give advice. You give us new perspectives on our relationship with ourselves, of our relationships with others, and on our relationships with the idea of a relationship.
I like to think of them as mind expanders. I think I said that earlier, but I've been thinking about the other day, this a lot, like how much a perspective shift can make you feel so enlightened, but you're really just like looking at something from a different angle.
100%. Yep. All right. I Need Coffee writes, I'm 35 and have been married to my college sweetheart for almost 10 years. We have 2 kids together, 3 years old and 5 years old. Our relationship and marriage felt so perfect for a really long time. Our daily rhythms, our values, our hopes for the future, our interests and hobbies, our families all meshed so perfectly. We even have the exact same attitude towards housework. It felt like we married youngish at 25, and it made so much sense given our long history together and all the ways in which we fit. Fast forward to the birth of our eldest child, and my spouse had a mental breakdown of some kind. We didn't quite understand what was going on, but with a 6-month-old, I had no energy, and so I sent them to therapy. After 2 years in therapy, they were getting stronger, and we had our second child, and like clockwork, when our baby was 6 months old, my spouse came to the realization that she was a woman and had to transition. Now it was my turn to collapse a little, as I had never seen myself with a woman. I was terrified about how to support her through her transition with 2 young children. I was trying to rebuild my career. It was a lot. We both went into therapy. We found support groups. She started to transition. And while transition was really hard, we made it through stronger than before. I think, though, I got into a bad habit of hiding my grief from her. I mourned the changes in the body that I loved, but I didn't want to hurt the soul that I still deeply love. So I took my mourning elsewhere and adjusted to all the changes. At around the same time that she came out to me as trans, she also came out to me as being into BDSM, more specifically, Dom Sub Power Play. We believe some of her interests came out of her repressed gender expression. This idea of play scared the bejesus out of me, and I still can't pin down why I'm so anxious about it. I think because in my own experience as a woman, being in positions of less power have always been scary and traumatic, and there's nothing fun about pretending these dynamics. But to her, being a sub was a way to express her femininity, even while she was in the closet. She knew how anxious it made me and tried to respect my feelings, but also seems to have needed to explore this part of herself so badly, and my attempts to understand and work with her were moving too slowly. So she started playing with people online about a year ago without my knowledge. She told me soon after she started doing it, but said she had to keep doing it. She kind of didn't quite apologize, saying that instead she didn't realize it was crossing a line since it was just a silly virtual thing. She said she needed this outlet. Since our attempts to work together at her needs being met have been difficult for both of us, I begrudgingly consented to her continuing, even though I really didn't want her to. I told her I didn't like it, but we have 2 young children. I was exhausted after the transition. I was totally unsure of what I wanted in the bedroom and mostly felt anxiety around it. So rather than face how hard saying no would be, I said okay, but with some conditions. I asked her to restrict the amount of time she indulged in the play and to keep it about sex. Over the months she did it, she broke both of these rules. She just kept sliding into it more and more, sometimes in front of me. She fell for one person without me knowing, and then a second person later, and finally, a few months ago, she confessed those feelings to me. Again, no apologies. When she confessed her attachment to the second person, she also asked if we could physically open up our relationship and explore polyamory. She feels a deep yearning to explore her new identity with new people, to fall in love with someone who knows her only as a woman. But she doesn't want to break up with me. She loves me. She loves our family. She won't do it. Now, Sam and Sierra, I am liberal. I have numerous poly friends, but I did genuinely believe in fairy tales when I got married. I believed in monogamy and love until I die. I wanted to turtle in with someone and face the world together from a safe, hard shell. I'm wondering if I'm just being naive. Should I really expect monogamy nowadays? I feel both foolish for wanting it, yet still betrayed that she broke the rules. I think most people I've told this to wonder why I've stayed this long. The answer is really simple. She's made me really happy. Like I said, we live the same way. She understands me in a way no one ever has. I love math and do math for a living, and no one knows what I'm talking about except for her. She makes me feel supported, seen, and loved. But she's been really unhappy in life for about 4 years, sliding into some bad suicidal depression last year right before she started playing with people online. Living with someone I love who doesn't love the life we've built together hurts so much. So here's my question. I don't want to break up, but I've pushed my own needs and my own identity aside for so long to support her that I'm exhausted. The thought of trying to change the whole way I think about relationships just sounds so tiring. Managing more than one relationship sounds exhausting, and the thought of watching her fall in love with someone else in front of me sounds devastating. That being said, I know her needs and wants are valid, and I know I can't give her what she wants. Do I push her out even though I don't want to? Kind of a if you love them, set them free type thing? Do I try to do even more work to change what I wanted in a relationship? I'm so scared I'll let her go and then wonder how bad a poly relationship really could have been. Is my fear of the unknown holding me back? I'm just so tired. I don't know how much of my no to polyamory is based more on exhaustion than a real rejection of the idea. There are kids to think about too. We get along so well as a family unit. Every day is smooth and fun. Do I continue to put what I thought I wanted, a monogamous relationship with a man, away in a cupboard for the sake of the 3 other people in my life? Please show me how to love myself through this, because right now, that's what you are both so good at. All right, Coffee. Thank you so much for writing. And I just want to say that both of our hearts go out to you. And I think to be in a relationship that you thought was going to be one way and then to have it unexpectedly change is a challenge. And it can be really disorienting to sort of look around and realize that the ship that you thought that you had built is something else completely different.
Right. And I think I'm very struck right now by how universal this experience is, albeit how unique it might seem on the surface, right? That the universality is so many relationships and partnerships enter a union or a relationship believing or wanting it to be one way. And then the relationship itself goes through a transition, turns into something that neither partner recognizes or one partner didn't ask for or whatever. And having to negotiate that new differential, like that's the universal thing for me here. And that's why Sam and I feel, even capable to speak on your experience, is that we're kind of zooming out and looking at the universal truths that we see here. The hard thing that I want to say, Coffee, is that your partner may not want to break up with you, but they don't want the relationship you currently have. And their actions are telling us that. They're telling you that repeatedly.
Right.
But we can't uphold other people's boundaries for them. Or in this case, we can't uphold what I feel like you two are doing is playing some sort of Russian roulette where neither of you are willing to say that this relationship has turned into something that is no longer serving the type of life I want to live.
Absolutely.
And that's a really, really hard and painful thing to say, to admit to each other, to admit to yourself. Especially, oh my God, especially when the other partner doesn't want to say it either.
Absolutely.
Because it feels like the ultimate betrayal. But I need to tell you that is a great act of kindness, not just to your partner, not just to yourself, but to your family too.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that stood out to me most in your letter was the line of, living with someone I love who doesn't love the life we've built hurts so much. And I just was so struck by your understanding of the situation and in that moment, right? In that, like, the last paragraph is just all so many questions of like, what do I do? What should we be doing? Should I be trying harder? Should I not be trying so much? Like, but that one sentence of living with someone I love who doesn't love the life we've built is just like, it is so clear that your pain is so acute, that it is so focused in on, right? Like, and now is the time that we can say, like, yes, so we recognize that pain exists, and now is the time to figure out how we move in recognition of the pain that this relationship is causing you. And I want to say to you, like Sierra and I sometimes talk about, right? Like, the relationship has now changed and has become something that you didn't necessarily agree to when you entered into it. And I think I want to affirm you and say that it is not naive or wrong or somehow uncool to want to be in a monogamous relationship with someone. It is not unhip, uncool, unrealistic to say, I want to be with one person and to have that person be just with me. And I think that those desires that you're feeling for that type of relationship and your want for that is just as valid as your partners want to have a polyamorous relationship, right?
Right.
And I think what comes through in the letter is just your constant willingness to be able to see the validity of your partner's desires and needs in this relationship and not be able to see your own needs and desires as equally as valid.
Totally. I wrote the note, your needs aren't drastic, right? Like, your needs aren't harmful or oppressive. Your needs are your needs, right? And I think about my Rumi quote that I always go back to. And you, when are you going to begin that long journey into yourself? And for your partner's journey, I see them walking down this journey, right? This self-development, this journey into themselves to where, you know, they finally get to become who she really is, right? Like, this is a beautiful thing that your partner's doing, not just transitioning to being a woman, but, you know, becoming a more and more authentic version of herself. This is Absolutely. A good thing. But when I see you walking down that path for your own, I see you like chiseling out that path to align with hers, right? Not forging your own path, right? Not figuring out what you need and what you want. It's like I see the imagery so clearly that it's almost as though you're following behind your partner's journey with like a pickaxe and a lantern, like trying to see where you fit, while not carving out the space in your own journey, right? I also want to say that I love and respect the family unit you guys have built. It's I think that queer people, families, and regardless of gender or sexuality, families throughout time have always found a way to forge themselves, right? Whether by blood or not by blood, by marriage, by not by marriage, by 4 parents, 3 parents, step parents, there by no parents, right? Like there are so many different ways to have a family. And I can already tell, I Need Coffee, that the love that you and your family hold, that's not going to go away if you start taking care of your needs, right? Mm-hmm. The connection that you and your partner have and the co-parenting that you're doing naturally, the love that you share for your children and for your life, that's not going to go away if you say, this is not what I'm interested in anymore. If you take care of yourself, the world is going to keep turning. Your relationship, your family is going to keep thriving, right? Mm-hmm. And as a child of a divorced family, I just have to say that your children will be okay. They will be better if you are living your happier, more authentic life. Mm-hmm. And again, this whole fucking episode has been a contradiction because we're like, this is going to be true. And then we're like, there's nothing true and yada, yada. What I mean by that is, in my personal experience, my parents' divorce led me to have a better, truer relationship with both of my parents, who are now living happier, more authentic lives because they didn't stay in a marriage that didn't sustain them just for the sake of keeping their family together. Because again, there are so many ways to have a family.
Absolutely. And I think you even say it in your letter, right? I know her needs and wants are valid, and I know I can't give her what she wants, right? And there's a couple things that I want to pull out about that is like, so that seems absolutely true in this, right? It seems like you are not actually the person that can give her what she needs and wants, right? Because she wants someone who is interested in being a dom person with a woman, and that is just not who you are or what you're interested in. But I also want to say, flip that around too, right? Your needs and your wants are valid, and she is incapable of giving them to you as well, right? Your needs and your wants around having a monogamous relationship with the person who is a man, right, is 100% valid. Like it is absolutely, totally, wonderfully acceptable for you to want that and desire that for yourself. To be in a relationship with someone who's not seen other people, to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't expect you to be the dominant person, right? Those are all equally valid needs and wants. And so, but your partner is no longer capable of giving those things to you. And so I want you to reframe this as, it's not that you're not giving enough of yourself, because I even wrote on this, like, you have given her so much, where are you? Because I'm not seeing you in this letter at all, but I think it's really hard to say this, but both of you are incapable right now of giving each other what you need in this relationship. And it's not either of your fault, right? It is not either of you being inadequate. It is not either of you being too demanding or not being willing enough to sacrifice, right?
Right.
It is about just two people who have been in a relationship, who are now seeing that their wants and their desires for this relationship are completely incompatible. Right. And that's a sad place to be sitting, but I think it's also an empowering place to be sitting, because it gives you the tools and resources you need to say, I'm not getting what I need from this relationship. I will find a way to continue to support us. I will find a way to continue to support our family, but I need to find another place where I can get the things that I want and need out of a relationship. And I love you and I support you, and will find ways to continue to do that with you. But we need to not be in relationship anymore. Or we need to redefine the relationship and say, we are now co-parents and that's it. Or we are now not speaking anymore and that's it, right? All of those things are equally valid. But your partner can't have you as a person who wants monogamy and also polyamory, right? Like, It is unreasonable for them to expect both of those things. And I'm just going to call it out. And I'm not trying to say that in a way of like judging or shaming your partner, because I think we all want all of the things, right? But it's unreasonable for them to ask you to be both of those things at the same time. And I think that you need to recognize that that's unreasonable, and that you can't continue to contort yourself to try and fit something that is so completely outside of your capability to fit, that it's unfair that you're being asked to do that.
Yeah. And this is not about your partner's transition. So I want to like relieve you of the idea of being a good wife or a good liberal or a good person, right? Like that you have supported your spouse in her transition the best that you can, and you've seen and acknowledged her for who she is. You've stayed with her, right? You have entered a new relationship with her. So it's not about gender. It's not about gender, and it's not even about sexuality, because I think, honestly, like, and maybe you can chime in if you disagree, Sam, but like, if it didn't come to the exploration into types of sex and polyamory that you're not interested in, like, you two would still be together figuring out what it meant now to be two women in relationship, right? Like I truly, from your letter, I feel that from you, and I feel the pressure you felt, right? And how that took you by surprise, but that you were open to staying with this partner, right? But so many other things have changed other than gender. So this isn't about that, right? This is about the fact that the type of the needs that you two have in a relationship at the same time, as Sam says, are ill-equipped for each other. They're not lining up. And I want to tell you that you and your partner are both doing the best that you can. You're doing the best that you can move through this. But both of you deserve to live a full and authentic and happy life.
Absolutely.
And that both of your needs are valid and important, and you're not going to get them from each other. At least not from what you have told Sam and I about what you want. Like, where are you? Just what Sam said. Where are you? And I'm going to go back to the first thing that I said, is that your partner may not want to break up with you, but that's because they don't want to pull the trigger.
That's real.
Do you feel that way? Because I feel that permeating from this letter, that like they might not want to lose what you guys have built in your relationship, but they don't want this relationship.
And I think, my love, Coffee, the same is true for you too, right? Like, I think you are both at this impasse where you both know that this relationship is not working for either of you, but you're both afraid to pull the trigger. And I will tell you that this relationship is not working as it exists. And I will also tell you that you two can still find a way to be in relationship with each other in a way that doesn't require you to contort yourself this much, right? You can still be...
I'm so glad you said that.
Right? You can still be friends. You can still be co-parents. You can still figure out a way to...
Which is its own form of partnership,
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep. And I know many people who are co-parents of children who love each other to death and are just like, we were horrible in relationship with together. Like we have found a way to be so like in sync when it comes to parenting. We have found a way that works for us in that, but like we couldn't be together as people. And I think that I want to, again, say like, there are no rules, right? So like that can be a really authentic, meaningful relationship. And I think, society would tell us that like, oh my God, divorced parents will never, it'll be all custody battles and it will be all fights and the poor children will be used as pawns. But like you can make divorced parenting work really well, maybe even better than married parenting with like people who hate each other, right?
I totally agree.
So I think that the relationship has changed so much that it's important to see that it is completely different than the relationship that you entered into, and to empower yourself to say, okay, it's already changed so much. Let's change it even more to make it work better for the two of us. Let's get rid of the things that aren't working for us and recognize that you want things that your partner isn't able to give you. Your partner wants things that you aren't able to give her. And that's okay. It is okay to take a step back and say, this isn't right, this isn't working, we can find a new way to move forward that doesn't involve us constantly hurting ourselves and hurting each other.
Right. And she deserves to be happy. Sam and I are rooting for her too.
Absolutely.
Sam and I want her to live this full life that she deserves.
Absolutely. I want her to explore what it means to be in a polyamorous relationship. I want her to explore what it means to be a submissive in a dom-sub-submit or relationship too, right? I just don't want her to expect you to do that because you don't want to, you don't need to, and it's not what you want for yourself, right? And and so that is what we're getting at, that both of you are so equally valid in the things that you want, and those things are just completely different. And it's okay to say, that's it. We can't do this anymore. But we can find a way forward to be as supportive of each other and of our children as we possibly can.
I agree. We love you. I need coffee. You deserve coffee, and you deserve so much more.
Absolutely. We love you. Thank you so much for writing. All right, that brings us to the blind date segment of our episode. This is when we try and hook you up with something that we think you're really going to like. This week, our blind date is...
Ask a Queer Chick, a guide to sex, love, and life for girls who dig girls. It's a book on queer love by a friend of mine who writes an advice column. I don't think it's running still. It ran for a really long time on Autostraddle, but I think... it has since stopped running and kind of popped up here and there. But before, when it was at its prime, my friend Lindsay, somebody I know through the poetry community, Lindsay King Miller, put this collection together of similar to our format, like letters, asking advice, but also it has little essays on your first pride or coming out and things like that. And I do want to say that I really love how Lindsay writes. She's really down to earth, friendly, authentic, compassionate, and direct all at once. And I also want to say that I really trust Lindsay to be a intersectional, well-rounded queer person, that I think that her book is great for all queer people, all gender and sexuality identities. And I love her writing. I love her as a person. She has an amazing queer family with her partner in Colorado. And I just want everyone to go buy their book or her book. It's called Ask a Queer Chick, a guide to sex, love, and life for girls who dig girls.
I love it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. You can like us on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at JustBreakUpPod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can send your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise and tickets to our birthday live show happening on Saturday, June 6th at 6 p.m. Central. You can get your tickets on justbreakuppod.com. They're just $5. Get them now.
Love it. Please leave us a 5-star rating and review, and consider supporting us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you will get an additional bonus weekly episode. And there are other goodies if you go to higher tiers. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod. This literally keeps the lights on, and it helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Original music recording, editing, producing by our friend Big Cats. Check out his podcast, the What If Podcast. And remember, your life is full of unlimited abundance, and you are always surrounded with infinite wisdom. Tap into it. Trust your instincts. You know what feels right to you. The universe will support you in every positive way when you move forward and make choices to live your authentic, full life. Everything you could possibly need is already waiting for you. And if all else fails,
just break up.